Welcome back to A Fresh Story, the podcast where we have conversations about brave decisions to start over again. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Jenny, and we're so glad you're here today.
Hello, sister. You know, they say that you shouldn't meet your idols.
Yeah, but I met mine, and I would like to tell you that it works out quite well.
She's going to tell a story about meeting her idol.
I've gotten to meet a couple of idols on this podcast, but I found Becca Murray through TikTok, and she just has such a wonderful energy about her. First of all, she's got I'm a sucker for dimples. Thomas has a dimple. I love dimples so much. And he's got the best dimple. Becca has the second best dimples. And I feel comfortable
beautiful.
with that.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous. And she just has such a beautiful energy that emanates from her. And I think that I had a real transformation with my own wardrobe that sort of coincided with TikTok and like watching more TikToks. And I definitely know that Becca has inspired that because she just seemingly dresses in a way that really intuitively like lights her up. And I started doing that. And you can see from the point that I like left my ex into even just a few months later, like I was dressing in a way that like I'm clearly so much more confident in. It's not traditionally flattering. It's not traditionally tight. It's not anything except that it feels like me. I like to style myself every day. Like even if I'm working from home or if I'm not going anywhere, like I like to look a certain way. And I love like going to people like Becca who don't necessarily share my style, but have that sort of intuitive, authentic way of dressing. And that really extends throughout everything she does. You know, I can see the way she feeds herself, the way she nourishes herself, the way she takes care of her, like mental health. It's all very intuitive. She's very connected. And we got to hang out with her for an hour, which was so cool. She was such a lovely person. And, you know, we talked a little bit about wedding photography, and I revealed a pretty interesting story on the episode. Having a wedding photographer.
Gee, you did?
Yes.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Did you buy it?
Like, I have no clever comebacks. I'm trying to work out
Yeah, but I'm
something.
just keeping that in there because
No,
I'm the producer of the show.
No, I was trying to work in another word and I couldn't figure it out. I did have a funny thing that happened to me in a Facebook group.
A funny thing happened on the way to the Facebook group.
Yeah. And, but we talked about wedding photography, and our wedding photographer was Terry, who I have to ask her for her photos.
We love Terry.
And, yeah, my wedding photographer was Terry, who's so body positive, and Becca is similar in the same way. And I just feel like it's such an important day to have somebody that's on your team that's not like telling you to suck your belly in. And I imagine getting married with Becca by my side would be so cool.
I mean,
just
honestly, doing anything with Becca by your side would be cool.
Yeah, exactly. Becca, if you make it to Scotland, let me know. Anyway, I was a really cool experience because she was somebody, you know, people on the internet, for me, still a child of the 90s, they feel very distant and far away. We've made so many of these people our friends now. Nikki Pebbles, Alex Frankel, Laura Danger, Laurel, and all these people, Rebecca Lee. I mean,
Jenny,
don't get me started on that one. And they're real people, and we get to know them, and we get to spend an hour talking intimately with them about their authentic selves. It's kind of the coolest thing ever. I really appreciate the ability to do that.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool. It is. And she just exudes confidence and grace, and it was a pleasure to talk to her. So please enjoy this episode of Becca Murray, and please remember to rate, review, and subscribe to A Fresh Story so we can keep telling fresh start stories. Okay, here we go. So today we're with Becca Murray. Becca, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because we're so excited you're here. And who's Becca Murray? Who are you?
I'm so excited. I'm such a fangirl, so I'm very excited.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. I am a photographer turned content creator, I suppose is what I would say if I had an elevator pitch, the short version.
And I think you brought back like the bare buns too. I feel like that's important to mention.
Yes, my dedication to space buns is strong. I got a bad layered haircut in 10th grade back in the late 90s, 1998. to be exact. And I just never looked back.
We're all for it. We're all for it. Where are you located, Becca?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, so it's early by you. Well, earlier. We appreciate you being here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Should I say I'm getting surgery later? So that's a thing that
Casual.
I am. Yeah, just casually having a little conversation here, and then I'll head over to the hospital afterwards.
Well, we appreciate you being here.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Things about getting older, I guess. It's being a human in a human body.
There's always something.
It's always something, literally, with the human body. Yeah. Well, why don't you take us back to the beginning of your Fresh Starts story?
I feel like I have pivoted so many times in my life, so it's kind of funny to pick one, but I feel like the overarching thing and what has guided my life over the last decade, and definitely my career in my photography and where I started with content creation and TikTok, is with my relationship with my body. I grew up in a very, I would say, typical, stereotypical even, suburban household in the 80s and 90s. We had a binder of diets next to the fridge growing up, an entire cabinet that was full of Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig and Slim Fast and just all of the things.
All the good
Snackwells. Oh my God. So much lean cuisine. Yeah. And I remember going on my first diet, seeing my first nutritionist when I was in elementary school. There was just like never a time that we weren't talking about bodies in my house and talking about weight loss specifically, and that we weren't all trying to make ourselves smaller. And I was just really consumed with that. I was pretty much in the throes of an eating disorder by the time I was in high school, and no one noticed. It went undiagnosed because I was never underweight. Yeah. I was just like, I knew what my quote, like, normal walking around weight was, and it was just like my set point, right? Like where my body wanted to be. And I was just constantly trying to push myself to get below that. And in order to do it, I had to do really, really unhealthy things. And so then I sort of, went through that cycle of starving myself through high school and into college, and then I moved to LA for acting. I was a theater major in college and then moved to LA to be an actor, and then it's just so normal. Like no one ever calls anything out as bad behavior. It's just like, oh, you're being healthy. Oh, look at Becca. She is like, she eats so well. The joke was always like, if you cut open like me and one of my skinnier friends, like my insides would look healthier. So it's just so weird that my outsides didn't look as healthy as hers. I was like, but my best friend and I used to joke, I was an evangelist for Weight Watchers. Like we used to joke that I could not have a conversation, that if a conversation was more than 15 minutes long, we would end up talking about Weight Watchers and how many points were in the foods that we were eating.
I get that.
Yeah. So it was really bad. And then I started getting sick in my 30s. I didn't really know what was going on, but my body was just acting up in a lot of ways. And I was going on some elimination diets, trying to figure out if things were food related. I was suddenly gaining a lot of weight, which was alarming to me because I was still very much in the throes of like those thought patterns. And at some point, I got so frustrated with hating my body while I was trying to fix my body. And I was like, I can't hate myself better. And I was a vegetarian from the time I was 14 up until like this point, basically. I had eliminated so many foods that my doctor was like, you have to eat meat. Like you're eating, you can't even eat like hearty greens. You're eating like lettuce and olive oil. Like we need you to be eating some food. So I started eating meat at that point. I was like kind of trying to heal that relationship. There were just like so many pieces of it. And then I discovered sort of a body positive side of Instagram. And I was doing photography at that point. And I discovered a body positive boudoir photographer who I was following and really enjoying their stuff. And then I had a friend who was like, hey, I want to take some sexy photos for my anniversary. I trust you. I know you've never done this before, but would you want to take photos for me? And I was like, sure. And we did that. And I was like, oh my God, that was so fun, so empowering. And like, she was an actor. And as all, I would say most actors have a lot of insecurity around their body and the way that they're seen on camera. And just like seeing a lot of those insecurities drop was just so inspiring to me. And I was like, oh, this is something that I can help facilitate in other people. But I was still kind of working on that relationship with myself. And then as I just, it's through practice, right? It's like you sort of, I started like changing my social media feed to unfollow anybody that made me feel bad about myself or any sort of like aspirational accounts, and started following like a more diverse array of bodies and people who were just living life and feeling themselves and not talking about all of the diet culture stuff, or self-help. I divested from self-help culture at that time, which was not a thing that I ever thought that I would be able to do. Like I was constantly on a self-improvement journey. Yeah. And it just started like normalizing like that I was okay and that I was okay as I was. And so I started taking that into my photography and then working on that relationship with myself. And I finally stopped dieting. 2017, I did my last diet, which was great. A nutritionist who had me on like a 500 calorie a day thing to get me for 3 months to try and get me to try and get me down to my quote actor weight. And then I was actually a trip to Italy because I was trying to lose the weight to go on the trip so I could eat pasta and gelato. And I got there and I was eating pasta and gelato and drinking wine and walking around. My flat iron like burst into flames on the first day, like melted down. So I couldn't straighten my hair. So like my hair was curly for the first time in my life. And I was just like walking around in Italy, like sweating in the humidity and eating gelato and being like, I feel so good right now. Like, how do I feel this good when I'm eating sugar and carbs? Like, I don't understand. And then I came home and I was like, oh, I feel good because I was eating sugar and carbs. I was like, how do I bring Italy Becca home? And so that's when I stopped straightening my hair.
Love it.
And then the best curl pattern, so I'm glad that you stopped straightening it. Amazing.
And then that was my last diet, was right before that trip. And it was like, okay, how do I just start bringing this into my life? And so that was, it's a process. But then COVID happened, and I think with everyone, with all of our like sort of systems and routines disrupted, it was really easy to fall back into old thought patterns. And I started going into like a sort of restrictive cycle with food. And that's when I started baking bread. So I was like, if I can just make my house smell good, I will want to eat the thing. Like it will physically make my stomach rumble and I want to eat the thing. And then I had a meeting a doctor's appointment on the phone in 2020, just to like refill a prescription or something. It was like, early pandemic times. And my doctor made a joke. She asked how I was doing. I said I was baking bread. And she's like, okay, well, just watch out because COVID-19 stands for the 19 pounds you gain in quarantine.
Oof.
And I was like, do you know who the fuck you're talking to right now? Like, look at my chart. I don't get weighed when I come to the doctor. Like, who?
Right.
Like, you're just on the phone. You thought you were being funny. And so I took that story and went on TikTok. And that was the first video that I posted on TikTok.
That's cool.
And then that just sort of opened up a whole another world for me.
I have so many things to say. I literally am taking notes. So
sorry, I just covered a very large span of time.
You're a great storyteller.
It's amazing. And
like this.
So many things, because I also struggled. I think Jenny and I have our own body issues. I struggled more with restrictive dieting. I would say, looking back on my life, I probably have had an eating disorder since I was about 6 in a way. And I was, whereas you were a Weight Watchers evangelist, I was a Whole30 evangelist, to the point of even trying to apply to work for the company, right? And you couldn't talk to me for 2 seconds without, I used to run groups. I did the whole thing. Now I realize it was all restrictive eating disorder. And I want to just talk, I want to like work backwards from what you said, because there's so many things you said that I think are so important. Going from a world, and our family was the same way. Diet, generationally. Our grandmother went to OA. Our grandfather died from obesity, all of these things, right? Making that shift, which I too have done, and I have 2 boys who are 10 and 7. And so it was a really, so I made a mission to myself that I wasn't going to bring this into the next generation, right? But that took a lot of work for me. So going, I would say I'm almost 40. So going the last couple of years, working with a lot of healers to deal with my binge eating and stuff, it is like going from one planet to another, to wake up to not thinking about dieting. So I would love to hear how that went for you, to make that transition from like everything in your world is diet, to then letting that go. What was that like?
It's so hard because I didn't have a model for it. I literally didn't know that it was possible, because generationally it was the same for me. It was like, it was my mom, it was my grandmother, it was everyone that I knew, no matter what they looked like, was in this cycle with their bodies. And so when I started making the change, I think it's Jess Baker has a thing in, it might be in Land Whale, I don't remember, where she talks about how when you stop dieting, sometimes the pendulum just like swings in the other direction. You're like, it's a free for all. I get all of the things, right? And that's everyone's fear about intuitive eating, is that you're just going to want to, the joke of it is like, oh, if I just listen to myself, I'm just going to eat pizza and donuts all the time. And it's like, but actually, if you start listening to yourself, you won't. But we don't listen to ourselves. We listen to what other people tell us we're supposed to eat, how we're supposed to move, what we're supposed to look like. It's all of these other rules that are being put on us that are throwing us into this box and shutting down our own internal voice. So figuring out how to listen to that. I mean, I've been to a lot of therapy, so that helps. Helpful. But I think it's a lot of it was sort of outside in for me. I joke about like the shift in my style, like literally the clothing.
I was going to ask about that. I wanted to get to that. Yeah.
Oh, and we can save that.
Oh, no, too. Take it. No, it's something I associate with you, of like dressing in a way that like brings you joy.
Yeah. And it's, it feels so tied to the food thing. I had sort of started going down this sustainable fashion rabbit hole. And in that, there's a lot of elastic waist, wide leg linen, because it is, it's a fabric that people want to use, and you're actually creating something that is fluctuation friendly, which means that you're able to wear it for longer, which makes it a more sustainable item of clothing, all of these things. And I bought my first pair of like wide leg linen pants and like a boxy linen top. And everyone who saw me that summer was like, what happened to you? Like, you look like yourself now. Like I've always like known you, but now you like look like yourself. And so that was just like, it became my uniform. And I remember walking into therapy one time, and my therapist was like, okay, so like, how have you been feeling? How are you feeling in your body? And I was like, I actually don't think I have thought about my body today.
Yeah.
That is wild. She was like, okay, well, like, let's take a step back. Why have you not thought about your body? And I was like, I haven't had to adjust my clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
And then not having to adjust my clothes, I used to just have such a visceral reaction and a punishing reaction for myself around the foods that I could eat. If my jeans felt too tight, or if there was like a little roll over something, or if I had to like adjust stuff when I would sit down or get up, or, I used to do that thing where I would like tuck my thighs under so that like my cellulite wouldn't show on the outside. I would like tuck it under to just like I was constantly monitoring my body.
Existence.
Yes, my existence, and trying to just shrink myself down, and that translated to the food that I was eating. So it's like once I started figuring out how to be less, I don't want to say less aware of my body, but just less critical of my body from moment to moment, I was able to free up my brain to just be like, oh, I'm just going to eat food because I can eat food and I don't have to watch every single bite of it.
Well, it's an integration with your body, right? That's really what it is. It's becoming one after being so dislocated from your body for so many years, and having other people tell you about your body and having that agency taken away, right? And your intuition taken away. It's once it's like Peter Pan and his shadow, right? It's like once they come together, you actually feel full and whole again. And that's such a beautiful moment.
Yeah. It's wild. Just the ability to be like, oh, like, what do I don't know. I feel like I listen to myself so well now, and it translates, like you said, just across the board. But I really push back with people who have that narrative of like, you're just going to eat pizza and donuts, because I feel like I eat the healthiest I have, quote, healthiest I have ever eaten, because I am eating a wide variety of things that make me feel good. Like, I go through phases where I'm like, ugh, I don't want meat right now. So like, I'm just like not gonna do that for a little while. You know, it's like, oh, am I craving, you know, whatever, cooked vegetables, or do I want a salad right now? Do I need something crunchy? Do I want something chewy? Do I need to add bread to this, or would I prefer to have something, you know? It's just like actually being able to listen to myself and check in on what I want is not something that I could ever do before, because I was constantly thinking about what I was allowed.
Right. I think that, like, to your point, so we're working on a book proposal right now, and I was literally writing today, like, there are no bad foods. Bad foods are foods with mold on them that you don't want mold on, or foods that make you feel bad, right? And I think so many people, I had my own journey to intuitive eating, and it is amazing what it frees your brain up to do when you are intuitive eating and you are, like you said, dressing in clothes that you don't have to think like, well, can I eat that, or is it going to show, or am I uncomfortable? Like, Olivia and I always talk about this. We're like, we refuse to be uncomfortable. I will not wear pants that make me uncomfortable. I can't do it. And I think it's so hard. There's so much noise coming in from the outside for all people, but I think especially women. And I think definitely our generation of women that was getting like the Jessica Simpson's a cow kind of, you know, model of body shaming. There's so much noise coming in that is intentionally there to distract us from listening to our bodies. And it's so trying to tap in. And I agree with you. You are not going to eat pizza every day and donuts every night if you let yourself eat anything, because if you actually connect to your body, you're going to see that that doesn't feel very good after a day or two. And the goal is not to be shoving things in our mouth that feel good on the way down, but to be making our body feel good all the time, you know? So after dinner, and to connect, like, when I go out to dinner and I overeat because I'm uncomfortable, and then I feel like I have to be like slingshotted home and unbutton my pants on the way there, that connects, and that's not a very good feeling. Like, connecting all of that, I mean, there's just so much noise out there, and I think it takes a really long time to get to that point, but when you do, it is life-changing. And the ability to be like, I don't want to eat that for lunch today. I had that planned, but I don't want to eat that. That doesn't sound like it's going to make my body feel good. It like allows you to do all the things that you've done, right? Like, you're doing amazing things. You're still doing photography. You're still doing all this content creation, and, you know, you do some like not sponsorship, but like, you know, you take on some stuff like that. Like, it frees your mind up in a way that, like, I think we were all really distracted by what's our next meal, and should we be eating it, and do we deserve to eat, and all of that for decades.
Yeah. And it also allows, like, start to feel your feelings, because we're managing so many feelings with food. I mean, that's also the way I grew up, is like, you're happy, or food and shopping, you know, are the things. Like, you're happy, let's celebrate with a meal and let's buy something. You're sad, let's wallow in a meal and let's buy something. And all of those things are just about pushing
not feeling
down our feelings and not allowing ourselves to actually live fully. So yeah, it's all so connected.
What's the connection, I would love to know, between your creativity and your photography business and stopping the diet culture? Did you see the relationship between the two grow?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I was still really coming into my own as a photographer and figuring out what it is that I wanted to be doing. When you start out, you're sort of throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And I knew, like, there were pieces of it that I knew. I've always had a camera in my hand. I was like the historian for like my drama club in high school, you know, where I like put together a scrapbook at the end of the year.
We would have been friends. We would have been friends in high school.
Yeah.
I went to like music and drama camp, mad camp on the summers. And I would go, I would take a camera with me, my little film camera, and like a whole bunch of film, and I would come home. I would shoot like 14 rolls of film, you know, in 2 weeks at camp, and then come home and make my mom go to Price Club, pre-Costco days, and go to the photo counter and get doubles of everything, so then I could like send photos to my friends. And I still have those photo books in like a box under my bed somewhere. But I knew that like candids and things were always really my jam, but I didn't know that there was really a space for that. And I think there's a pretty clear line with like the boudoir photography of how, you know, of body acceptance and all of that in there. But when it comes to wedding photography and other things, I think that really finding my niche as a photojournalistic wedding photographer and focusing on not posing things, just letting it be what it's going to be and capturing things exactly as they are, and knowing that like that's okay. Your wedding doesn't have to look like anybody else's wedding. You don't have to look like if you wear glasses, wear fucking glasses. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to look like anything that a bridal magazine tells you. And also, you know, there are so many bodies that are not represented, and so many humans that are not represented in wedding media, and that is just frustrating across the board. So it's just like being able to be someone who just like shows up and is a fly on the wall and lets people be themselves on a day that can feel really stressful because of all of these expectations that are put on us, again, by society, external voices that are telling you what you should do. It's just, creating a space for people to just feel okay listening to themselves and what it is that they want, and just being authentically themselves on a day that is supposed to be really happy.
I have a story for this, which is that some of the most body positive women I know are wedding photographers, just by like complete chance. It was like my college RA was Olivia's wedding photographer. She's amazing and has like so body positive. My wedding photographer, I just got married in September, is amazing and super body positive. And I had this really funny thing happen with my wedding photos, which was, so Terry, my photographer, came to Scotland and shot our wedding here. And I have a body. I exist in a human body, and it is curvy, and, you know, I'm big on top and whatever. And I had this dress picked out that was like kind of float away from my body. And at the last minute, I panicked that I didn't want to have that dress. It was a very small elopement, just me and my fiance, my husband, and the photographer and the officiant. Like, that was it. And so at the last minute, I was like, I needed a new dress. And I got this dress, which was tight, like bodycon, and it was beautiful. And when I came out to show my husband, he started crying. I was like, this is the dress, right? Like, this is the dress. And I decided, because I didn't want to be uncomfortable, that I was not going to wear special shaping underwear that day. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm like, for who? He knows what my body looks like, you know, for who? And I'm going to show up on that day looking like I look, you know, and I'm very happy with my body. I'm 36 years old. Like, you know, we have a pretty good relationship. And she took the photos and she sent a bunch to us already. And I'm in this Facebook group that had been really helpful with like getting wedding planning going. It's a shopping group. And I posted the pictures, 5 pictures. And I was like, I just wanted to share these. And people were like, oh my God, I've been waiting. I'm so excited. Like, you know. And one woman messaged me and she goes, hey, I Photoshop photos for my friends sometimes. So I did this for you. And I thought, we got married in a public place and we're in an Uber and I'm in Scotland. And so my dad is not very good. And so it comes up kind of like blurred out. So I can't see the photo. She sends one photo. She says that she sends another photo. And I said, oh, that's really sweet of you. Thanks. And then I tap on the photo and I'm like, did she get rid of people in the background? No, she got rid of my little pooch. And I didn't say anything else. And then she sent all 5 photos she had snatched my waist, and photos that I didn't have any problem with. The photo that she had done, it, the first one, was the only one where I would have been like, oh, I'm a little uncomfortable with that. But I had been bold enough to share it in the group. I was really proud of myself for like fighting that. And I was just like, luckily I was at a place where I could be like, that's on her, right? That's her problem. That's not about me. But my girlfriends were like, you know, not everybody's at that place. Like, it's worth saying something to the admins of the group. But I just thought it was so funny. And I told my photographer, and she was like horrified, you know, because I showed up that day as myself, and I was proud of being myself. And I just think it's so funny. It's so much about other people. But to have somebody that day with me, to have Terry that day with me, who was like, would not, you know, was, and I know that there are wedding photographers that would be like, suck your stomach in or something like that. And it is such a fraught day, no matter what you do. Like, it's just, there's so much emotion there. So to have somebody like you or like Terry or like Maddie, who did Olivia's wedding, that just is like your cheerleader and so body positive, I think it's super important.
The photoshopping thing is so real. I have a rule about, I think it translates a little bit more to boudoir, but it really does on weddings as well. If it was on your body 2 weeks ago and it'll be on your body 2 weeks from now, it stays.
Yeah, that's a good rule.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a temporary mark, you know, like if you bump your knee and you get a bruise, or like if a zit pops up on the morning of, like, we'll deal with it.
Right.
But other things are part of you. And like, that is not my work. Right. And like, I'm not here to enforce a beauty standard that I don't believe in. I don't want to sit at my computer photoshopping bodies to look a certain way all day. And anyone who does, I try not to have a lot of judgments, but I have judgments about anybody who photoshops people's bodies without their express permission, because all you are doing is putting your own insecurities on them.
Yes. And the first thing I looked at her profile and I saw she had a daughter, and I was like, that hurts, right? Because you know that child is getting that. Because it's not about me. It was never about me. She has no idea how I feel about my body. And it was just really, and it was interesting, the reaction from the photography community. You know, they were like, first of all, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to Photoshop other people's work. But it was just, it's so fascinating, the sort of connection of this idea that on your wedding day, you're supposed to suddenly sort of transform into Charlotte York. And, you know, and that's what you're going to look like. It's not true. We're going to look like how we are.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
want to talk about I want to talk about photography in general. What you said before made me think of one of our friends, Alex Frankel, who is a male model, and he came on our podcast and we've become friends. And he was the first plus size male Wilhelmina model. And he said for him, his entire life shifted when he had somebody take photos of him and he could see himself through that lens, right? And he was like, oh my God, I'm super hot, right? Like, this is amazing. And so I think even whether it's your wedding day, or for me, it's like founders photos. Like, I take, you know, we have our photographer takes a lot of pictures of me as a founder. When I can see myself through that lens as like an awesome founder in the body that I'm in, it makes me empowered to make different decisions. What has that been like just on your own photography journey as a boudoir photographer and wedding photographer and portrait photographer, to see other people's stories come to life through your lens?
It is one of my absolute favorite things. I think that so often we see other people as a whole, as human, and we see ourselves as a collection of parts. Yeah. And when we look at a photo of ourselves, we are so often just picking apart the little things. And I think part of the reason that people feel so nervous about being in front of a camera is because they feel that judgment, like the weight of that judgment. And that judgment doesn't come from the camera. The camera is neutral. It comes from the photographer. And I think that just being a presence to allow someone to just like relax a little bit, because it's the stiffness that we end up sort of judging in ourselves. And if you can allow people to relax and feel comfortable and walk out feeling good, then that feeling is also going to translate to when they look at the photos. And if people can take a step back and see themselves for once as a whole human, the way that you see them, like that's one of my favorite things, is when people are like, oh my God, I've never seen myself that way before.
Yeah. So what was it like showing up on social media, on TikTok, and growing this community?
Wow, big question. I had never had a social media presence other than like my Instagram account was just photography, right? It wasn't really anything pre-pandemic. And then showing up there, I don't know, it's been really fun. I moved out to LA to be an actor, and so I did that for a long time, and there were a plethora of reasons why I stopped, but it was really fun to sort of get back in front of the camera on my own terms and not feel like I was there trying to be something for someone else, that I had to look a certain way or act a certain way.
Yeah.
I felt like, in any sort of casting room, like someone's always trying to put you in a box, right? And it's like, I know what my face looks like and I know what my body looks like. And there's a reason I was always trying to change my body in order to fit the same roles that my face would play. And to just be able to show up and be like, oh yeah, no, this is who I am. And I had just never had that many people listening to me before.
Yeah.
And so that was just wild to have like one of my first videos blow up and had, I don't know, I think the first one had like 15,000 views, and I was like, oh my God, this is
now I've seen the posts about the hotel experience come across. I mean, like, it's you're epic. Your voice is very well heard.
It's just wild, like the number of viral videos that I've had at this point over the last 3 years. They're so varied. So a lot of people don't realize that I am the same person from all of these random little things that have happened in my life. But yeah, I love my TikTok community. I think that it has grown so organically, which has been really cool. Like there have been spikes, but I just kind of, at the beginning, it's just like all of a sudden I had 10,000 followers right away. And I was like, oh, wow, what is this? And then it just has been building slowly but surely for 3 years. And I feel like I know some of the people who comment all the time and, are really involved. And it's just been, I know that there are a lot of negative things about social media, but I feel like I love my little corner of the internet. Yeah. And I think that in order to, like, the negative parts of the internet and social media specifically are not going away. And so opting out doesn't allow you to change the system.
Right.
Like you can only change the system by participating in it. And so I'm very protective of
I love that.
My little space.
I love that. And I think it's such a testament to like the idea that, especially when things are happening in the world that's really scary, you can still make impact in your community, even if it's a social media community, right? Even if it's like your TikTok community, that's still a ripple effect, right? You're still putting out the positive energy and the love and from your heart and all that. And so I think it's beautiful, and your voice is so loud and so necessary. And so I'm curious, what's coming up in 2024 for you? What do you have planned?
I am actually trying to figure that out right now. I feel like the last couple of years, it was like everything sort of shut down and then things started opening up and then the ball started rolling a little bit more. And last year, I don't think I expected, the influencer side of being a content creator to actually become half of my job, like my livelihood. So I'm trying to like lean into that a little bit. I think in 2024, I think I am trying to embrace the word influencer, which is a very loaded word, but I also know that I do have a lot of influence and I don't take that lightly. I try to use it well.
Yeah.
And
you're very careful about it. Like it's clear with your, you're very careful about it. You're intentional.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm trying to lean into that in a way that feels good, because I have, as I said at the beginning, pivoted many times in my life, and my tendency is to just blow it all up and like burn everything to the ground and start fresh. And I have been trying to approach things with a little bit lighter touch, a little bit softer touch over these last couple of years. And so saying, okay, well, maybe like this part isn't what I am like super into doing right now. Like that's not bringing me joy right now, but doesn't mean I have to slam that door and burn that house to the ground. I can just like pivot a little bit? How do I add more? It's almost like with the eating disorder recovery and like intuitive eating part, I try to do additive things, like add stuff to my life, add stuff to my diet rather than subtract things from it. So I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to like take on a little bit more of this thing that's bringing me a lot of joy right now. And maybe that means I'll do a little bit less of this other thing, but that doesn't mean it has to go away altogether. And also I can always pivot back towards it and bring a little bit more of that in here too. So balance.
Balance. Keeping your doors open. Yeah.
You're a manifester. You like to make things happen and then drop the bomb and go and just see it happen.
So one of my best friends does, she's a human design practitioner or whatever. She like does human design readings, and I'm a generator is the thing that I learned from her, which means that I create responsively, which makes so much sense. It put so much in perspective for me because I don't just like sit in a room and like come up with ideas. Like things happen and I respond to them. Whether that's in the world or in my life, and oftentimes on social media, because someone will tell me what to do or give me advice about something, and that will make me feel some kind of way. And then I will, like, the content that I create will come out of the feeling that I have realized I have based on what they told me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like...
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. We're all about that.
To be in your box. Yeah.
Yeah, that's literally our jam. Yeah. We understand that. So Becca, if somebody's going through a fresh start journey, what would be some wise words you could impart to them?
There's no one way. I think that's sort of the sum of it. I love that. Everyone is going to tell you that their way is the way, and that is just patently false.
There's no rules and there's no one way. I love it.
No. I love that. And the most important question that we love to end with, what is the last thing that you ate and really loved?
I am currently just started a series on TikTok about eating the fancy ingredients that I've hoarded in my kitchen that I've been saving for a special occasion and have not eaten. We did a kitchen clean out the other day and I realized how many things expired that I had just been holding on to. Yeah. So the other night I made on pizza dough from our favorite local pizza joint, Desano's in LA, the best. Use that pizza dough, a Point Reyes blue cheese, caramelized onions, and like a fig jam with my Josu spicy citrus salt on there. And it was so good. That just like thrown amazing. Together, but also like miscellaneous fancy ingredients that just happen to be in the kitchen.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That's intentionally perfect in an unintentional way. Yes, I love that.
Because it's Becca, all about, all about the balancing of like flavors and textures, which I know like you have your big salads are like all about like something crunchy, right? Something like, so it's all about just like knowing your balances and knowing, and this goes back to everything, right? This is about like how you dress. Like it's just about proportions and knowing what feels good and like what you need. You need a little bit of color or you need a little bit of whatever. Like it's the formula.
Yep, I love absolutely.
I love it. Becca, it's such a pleasure to talk to you and get to know you. Thank you for sharing, and just keep doing your thing because your voice is so important and so loud and necessary in this crazy world. So we appreciate you and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really awesome.
Thank you for listening to today's story. We're always here and we're so proud of you.
A Fresh Story is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the first and only platform for everything you need to begin again. You can read the show notes and learn more about today's episode at afreshstory.com.